Are Blood Elf Paladins better than Alliance Paladins in TBC? What is this? Spoiler alert, is they're better. Horde Paladins are better. Yep. Unfortunately. It is what it is. They get sealed.
Alright guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be answering one very simple question. Are Blood Elf Paladins better than Alliance Paladins? We're mainly going to be looking at the differences in the overall DPS of a Retribution spec. Just before we jump in guys, please do consider subscribing to the channel because that really helps out. But anyway, let's get on with it. So first of all, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the racial differences between Blood Elf and Alliance, since both have a unique seal. Then we're going to precisely evaluate the DPS difference between both Paladins. First of all, I'll use a character in kind of mid-range tier 4 raiding gear, and then we'll test on a character decked out in tier 6 gear. And lastly, I'll make my conclusions. So why do people generally think that Blood Elves are better? Well, the main reason is Seal of Blood, which is a seal that deals 35% of your weapon damage as holy damage on every single melee swing, while also draining your health by 10% of the damage dealt, and also unleashing the seal deals 295 to 325 holy damage and drains health equal to 35% of the damage dealt.
I think Shadow Priest is healing basically his whole party, so what you can be doing is that you have a Blood Elf Paladin who is using Seal of Blood and he's attacking but also like damaging his own health, but at the same time you're gonna be having also Shadow Priest healing with their dots the Blood Elf Paladin like indirectly, and also at the same time Paladin has a talent that if the Paladin is getting healed, he's getting mana back for the amount of, I don't know, like 10% of the healed amount. So basically, when he's losing health, he's getting mana back. And that's why Seal of Blood is actually so important for the Retribution Paladin in PvE. Obviously, you shouldn't be using Seal of Blood if you're dying, dude. Just switch up the seal and heal yourself or something, you know? You're Paladin. Figure it out.
So why is this seal so good? First of all, it deals damage based on weapon damage, which means the better weapon you get, the more damage it deals, so it scales very well. Also, the damage is guaranteed to happen, so it provides very consistent damage. Plus, at a first glance, you may think that the health drained on the player is a negative, but it's actually more of a positive, since when a Holy Paladin debuffs a raid buff with Seal of Light, it will entirely top off your health, while simultaneously giving you mana through the Spiritual Attunement passive ability. And it's also fairly cheap on mana. So overall it provides great damage that scales very well as you get better and better gear, and has a little bit of cheeky mana regeneration on top of it. Let's take a look at the seal unique to Alliance, Seal of Vengeance. So Seal of Vengeance is a stacking dot debuff that scales with spell power, which means it actually kind of sucks a Retribution spec, provides slightly better DPS and threat per second for a Protection Paladin, but that's about it. Alliance Rep Paladin have no other choice but to use Seal of Command, so Seal of Command has a chance to deal damage equal to 70% of your weapon damage as holy damage, and unleashing the seal does 228 to 252 damage.
I think it's very interesting that in Wrath of the Lich King, actually Seal of Vengeance is the best one for Retribution Paladin, and Seal of Command is like AoE, so it's like if there is so many targets and your Retribution Paladin in Wrath of the Lich King, you use Seal of Command and you're attacking everyone. But in Seal of Vengeance, it's like the best single target that you can, like, in PvE.
So the first issue with this is obviously the seal is RNG based. Second issue is that it simply does less damage than Seal of Blood overall. Third issue is that it deals extra damage to stunned enemies, but you can't stun raid bosses. But, and I mean the big but here that is massively overlooked, Seal of Command is way more mana efficient than Seal of Blood, and it can also be downgraded, unlike Seal of Blood, to deal about 11% less DPS, but consume 55% less mana.
Oh, by the way, so he's playing a Draenei, and by the way, here you can see that he got Seal of Blood, because I think he's playing like on Endless TBC, and what this private server did is that they gave Seal of Blood also to the Alliance Paladins, but I give also Seal of Vengeance to the Blood Elf Paladins. So I think it's really fair. I think it's really fair, and the solution, I think it might be also applied to TBC, because you just want to have it balanced, and this is a really simple fix.
which means the longer mana-demanding fights, Sealer Command can actually be much better than Sealer Blood. The second big issue we have to deal with is Seal Twisting. We don't know whether Seal Twisting will be viable if Classic TBC is released, because it's technically a glitch that takes advantage of latency to boost DPS. Basically, you maintain Sealer Command up constantly, but a split second before you deal a melee swing, you switch to Sealer Blood. Long story short, you can benefit from both seal effects with perfect timing.
What the hell?
Seal Twisting does exist in the Classic TBC if it is released. The gap between Blood Elf and Alliance Paladin DPS will probably be even greater, since Alliance Paladins will Seal Twist with Seal of Righteousness, which only deals 137 holy damage on a melee swing, compared to the 300 damage Seal of Blood does, which is currently doing it on my character anyway.
I think this is some kind of glitch. Like, I don't think this should be like the regular way of how you should be actually like doing this stuff. And I definitely think it has to do something with the latency, and I think that, yeah, this is just some kind of like exploit in my opinion.
And that will also increase further as I get better gear, and Seal of Righteousness won't scale as well as Seal of Blood because it scales better with spell power. Just like Seal of Vengeance, it's tailored more for a protection paladin. On top of these specific paladin racial differences, the normal racial differences actually favour the Blood Elf, since they can use Mana Tap for mana regeneration and range pulls, and Arcane Torrent for an interrupt and short silence effect. Although the human racial is actually also pretty good due to the expertise bonus, and which does actually provide a fairly little bit of DPS. Nonetheless, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. But anyway, let's truly find out how much of a DPS difference there is between a Blood Elf Paladin and a Alliance Paladin. So, there's a few things to bear in mind about these tests. First of all, the DPS will obviously be way more in a raid. And it's important to note that Wind Fury Totem massively buffs Seal of Blood, allegedly more than Seal of Command, if we know 100% that Seal of Command is based on an internal PPM system, which means that no matter how many melee swings you use and extra melee swings you get, Seal of Command is only going to proc a certain amount of times per minute. Okay. I've also used a fairly typical rotation, so I'm using Judgment on cooldown, Crusader Strike on cooldown, I'm using Avenging Wrath at 3 Vengeance stacks, Consecration with Avenging Wrath, and I'm snapshotting Consecration when Avenging Wrath is about to fall off. I've done these tests until I run out of mana. I think that's a fairly fair way to do it, because we're also going to evaluate the mana efficiency of each seal too, because that does actually provide an interesting conclusion. So roughly the first test in tier 4 gear lasts about 1 minute, and then in tier 6 gear it will last 1 minute and 40 seconds. And these are also private server numbers across 2 private servers, so the numbers aren't going to be absolutely 100% precise, if that is even a word, to what Classic TBC numbers will actually be. And nonetheless, I think the results are actually quite interesting and probably not what you would expect. I think a lot of people think Blood Elf Paladin are astronomically better than Alliance Paladins, but it's not really the case. So
I think in the culture of mid-maxing is definitely gonna be an important factor if you wanna be deciding whether you're gonna be playing Blood Elf Paladin or you wanna be playing Alliance Paladin. So I think even though it would be, for example, like 10%, 5% more DPS, I think it's a huge deciding factor still. It's the same thing like right now, for example, with the Classic WoW, you have only Paladins available to Alliance and you have only Shamans available to Horde. And what I think it does is that it creates this like situation that for the PvE aspect it's much better to be raiding with Alliance, because the Holy Paladins are just OP and they can be spamming flash heal rank 1 that is healing like for 700 800, and they're basically never gonna run out of mana. It's just not possible. It's not possible to run out of mana as a Holy Paladin. And especially you're gonna see it when they're gonna be getting the beast gear from next Rammus, the plate T3 gear. They're just gonna be there. They are never gonna run out of mana. It's just not possible. So that's why they can be healing all the time. So that's why Paladins are actually better for PvE healing as Shamans. Shamans obviously they have Wind Fury Totem, but from the healing aspect, I think basically Paladins are better. It is what it is. But on the other side, when we look, for example, in the battlegrounds, I think the best class for Battlegrounds is hands down Elemental Shaman. Like, obviously, some people might be arguing that Warrior is the best for the Battleground, but he needs a pocket healer. He needs a pocket healer, and then he can be actually really, really strong, but he needs to be really careful about his positioning, so he's not gonna be just running like an idiot. You gotta be, like, careful with your positioning. So I think Elemental Shaman is the best class for Battlegrounds, actually, and Holy Paladin is the best class for PvE. So I think it's just not balanced, in my opinion. But everybody has different advantages, so to say.
So here are the test results. The top number is the total damage done in the test. Then we have the range of DPS. Below that we have the total damage of Seal of Command and obviously Seal of Blood. And then underneath that, that is the basically combined damage of
30,800 Seal of Command and 31,000, so it's only 400, so it's not that much. And if you have a look, total seal damage, actually Seal of Command did more damage. That's very interesting. But we also have to remember that Seal of Blood, the bottom one, is scaling better with weapons. And obviously in the later tiers you're gonna be having better weapons, which means that Seal of Blood is gonna be dealing more DPS.
What the seal is actually providing in terms of DPS. So that's the total damage of Seal of Command. That's the total damage of Seal of Blood. So as you can see, the total damage for Seal of Command was 30,832, about DPS range of 500 to 800 DPS when you look at the graph, and then the total damage it provided was 1,932. When we move over to Seal of Blood, the total damage was 31,206, and the total damage that it provided was 10,582. So as you can see, what's interesting here is that Seal of Command was actually providing more damage than Seal of Blood, and I think the main reason for that is because I was able to use more Seal of Commands before I ran out of mana. So as you can see, like in the early tiers when you're doing tier 4...
Wait, so this was not time based, but this was based like when you're gonna run out of mana. Okay. But the problem is that in the raid environment, you're gonna be getting healed, and you're gonna be and because your Seal of Blood is draining your health, and you're getting healed. By the healing, you are getting your mana back. So, yeah.
More content, there doesn't really seem to be that much of an incredible difference. Because if I did that test again, I could probably get Seal of Command on top of Seal of Blood, and I can get Seal of Blood below Seal of Command if I kept testing and testing. And this is basically just an average. So overall, when you're not very geared, there doesn't seem to be that much of a difference. And furthermore, I've actually took this testing into a raiding environment with crappy gear on. I actually think Seal of Command would come out on top of DPS when we're talking about overall DPS in a raid fight, because obviously raid fights, if you're not very well geared, you are going to basically run out of mana. Mana consumption is going to be an issue, and you can downrank Seal of Command, whereas you can't do it with Seal of Blood, which overall will probably end up providing more DPS to you because you're able to actually keep your seal actually buffed on your player to continue to do DPS for longer. And I actually think that Seal of Command probably provide more DPS in longer fights. And obviously it's important to bear in mind that Blood Elf Paladins will probably be able to use Seal of Blood, and when they're starting to run out of mana, start using Seal of Command. Overall, I just don't think there's that much of a difference when you're under-geared. So let's take a little look at the Tier 6 results. It's important to bear in mind that this was technically done in decked out PvP gear with best in slot enchants and gemming and all that kind of thing. So I went on to the Smolder Forge server.
What the hell? So Seal of Command did actually more damage? But if you have a look at total seal damage, Seal of Blood did much more.
Anyway, so total damage done was 103,282. The DPS range was from 800 to 1,450. The reason why that seems so ski with is because since Seal of Command is so RNG dependent and very proc related, it's very kind of inconsistent. So that's why it looks so different to the Seal of Blood DPS. Because at first glance it looks better, but it's actually technically not. Anyway, and the total damage that Seal of Command provided was 24,899, but as you can see, this number here, 6,780, that is the element of the seal where you are unleashing this seal to do holy damage, and then the other element is obviously based on weapon damage. So as you can see, because it's not based on weapon damage, it has scaled very poorly, whereas the weapon damage element has scaled fairly well. Next we have Seal of Blood. So overall did 99,166 damage, so interestingly that is less damage. The average DPS range was 1,100 to 1,350, and then the total damage that Seal of Blood provided was 39,663. Furthermore, if you compare Seal of Blood to Seal of Command together, Seal of Blood did 14,764 more damage, which is an increase of 59%. And when you compare the total DPS difference, it is actually 22% increase. So theoretically, Seal of Blood should provide 22% more DPS, but not more total damage. Okay? So obviously we have these two numbers here, 103,000, 99,000. Why did Seal of Command do more damage? And the simple fact is, it took longer for me to burn my mana out.
So he was not actually testing this by like a DPS standpoint, but he was testing it till he gonna run out of mana. I think in that case Seal of Command is obviously gonna be more efficient choice if you're not getting healed. But if you're getting healed, then I think Seal of Blood should win, because you're gonna be having more mana at your disposal.
And I was actually able to use more Seal of Commands because it costs less mana. So overall in the fight, even though these fights are roughly the same duration, Seal of Command actually ended up doing more damage. And that is the strange and very interesting thing about these tests. What we've essentially concluded is Seal of Blood does more DPS, but Seal of Command is way more mana efficient. So theoretically, if mana wasn't an issue at all, and you obviously brought mana potions and everything you can to regenerate your mana, and yeah, just theoretically, if mana was not an issue, which it's going to obviously become less of an issue where you get better gear, then Seal of Blood does provide more DPS, but Seal of Command does provide more total damage because it basically consumes less mana. So it basically means that Alliance Paladins are going to have much more damage stamina.
But Blood Elf Paladins can be using Seal of Command as well. And so Blood Elf Paladins have actually the chance, they can choose, they have choice, they can switch between Seal of Command if they're gonna be low on mana, but if they're gonna be having a personal healer, then they can be switching to Seal of Blast, and because they are getting healed, they are getting more mana, they can be using more spells, and they can be doing more DPS. But where on the other hand, the Alliance Paladin can be using just Seal of Command. Even in the earlier, I think in earlier clip, we could see like your Draenei Paladin and you were using Seal of Blood, because I think it's more DPS. But when it comes just to mana efficiency, then Seal of Command if you're not getting healed.
But Horde Paladins are going to have overall more DPS, so when Horde Paladins get better and better gear, we have a higher mana pool. It probably means that overall, in Tier 6, Tier 5 gear, they're going to do more damage. But Alliance Paladins will always have more stamina. We've also got to bear in mind that a human expertise ratio will boost their DPS slightly, provides 1% less chance to be dodged or parried. Bosses can still dodge when you attack them from behind. They have a 6.5% chance to dodge you, but obviously with a human racial, that is 5.5%. Not to mention that you'll have Enhancement Shaman in your group with the Heroic Presence buff that provides an extra 1% hit that Blood Elf Paladin don't actually get. It means you can equip a armor penetration piece or a crit piece over a hit piece, so that is something to bear in mind because that will provide a pretty decent DPS boost. And obviously as a human you have a reputation boost by 10%, and you're going to be doing a lot of rep farming in the Burning Crusade. Overall, I think that this just narrows the gap even more. Overall, I don't think the difference is incredibly serious. Alliance Paladins will probably even do more overall damage on progression fights where the fights are long and people don't really have that much gear yet. When everyone is geared up and farming the raids and everything, then yeah, then Blood Elf Paladins will take over and they're going to provide slightly more DPS for speedrunning, but I think it's only ever going to be 100 to 200 DPS like increase, but you also have to bear in mind that
100 to 200 DPS is actually kinda a lot if you think about it, because the Beast Warlock in TBC is gonna be having like 1400, so it basically means like 10% DPS increase, which is a lot in my opinion.
overall Alliance Paladins probably end up doing well, not more damage in the fight, but they will. It's hard to calculate because you're calculating DPS and overall damage at the same time, so it does become very complicated. But the point is that if we were to compare the total damage that Alliance Paladin does in a long fight compared to a Blood Elf Paladin, the DPS, the actual damage difference, I don't think it's going to be that much. I definitely don't think it's significant enough to convince people to totally re-roll to Horde when Classic TBC comes out. Another last point.
I think this would be just stupid, like forcing people to re-roll Horde because your class is gonna be doing more DPS. I think this is not gonna be efficient, and I think we're gonna be already having so many problems with the TBC population and with the faction balance, more specifically faction imbalance, because everybody wants to go Horde, and Horde racials are generally a little bit better. In TBC, in Wrath of the Lich King, it's gonna be a little bit different. In Wrath of the Lich King, the best PvP PvP racial is gonna be humans, because they can have double trinkets and still have like the racial is basically an insignia, which is removing any like movement slows and the stuns and the sheeps and all this stuff.
Point that you're probably thinking, well, what about Mana Tap and Arcane Torrent? Don't they like make up for the like less mana efficiency that Blood Elves have? Unfortunately, the mana that it actually provides is really terrible. As you can see here, it's only 294 mana every 2 minutes, so that's obviously not that great. But anyway guys, yeah. I've talked about everything that I absolutely have to talk about. My name is MetaGoblin. Until the next video, ciao.
Very nice video, fellas. Please go to the description, click the link to the original video, and leave a like on this video. Are Blood Elf Paladins better than Alliance Paladin? Leave a like and subscribe to MetaGoblin, because he really does good videos and you're gonna like them. And also please leave a like and subscribe to my channel as well. It might be nice. And write me in the comment what video am I supposed to check out in the next one, and I'm gonna check it out. Thank you fellas very much for watching this video. I really appreciate you. See you in the next one.